All right, look, well, we're going to get going, at least with my preliminary instructions here. Um, welcome to everyone uh, on this latest installment of our Lunch and Learn webinar series. I just need to start with a few housekeeping items. You should be muted when you log on, so there's no need for me to mute you. We'll be using the Q&A function for questions, but I might try to open it up at the end so you can actually voice your questions to Bill. But type them in as you think of them, and if you want to use the chat function, I'll be monitoring that as well. We are recording this session, and I will make it available to everyone who's registered after the fact. So let's get going. Thanks again for joining us, all of you. I usually start out these webinars by giving a nice introduction to our presenter, but this session's a little bit different. And if you don't know him already, you will get to know our guest today, Bill Toffey, during the course of our conversation. So welcome, Bill.
Hi,
and thanks for joining us.
I have a concern right from the start.
Yeah.
I saw in the chat that somebody's having trouble hearing me, and this is not the first time. So please let your viewers indicate if there's a problem, because
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure how to fix it if there is a problem.
Come closer. All right. Thank you for notifying us of that, and we'll try and keep tabs on that, Bill. Where are you coming to us from today, by the way?
I live in Philadelphia, have been for 45 years.
All right, beautiful garden. Let's just start. First question, how did you become a biosolids enthusiast? You know, what was the path that led you to this point in your career, and why? Why biosolids?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I was asked that same question by my 6-year-old son when he goes, "Dad, did you always know you wanted to be a sludge man?" And I didn't have a good answer. But his teacher told me that he told his class that his father was the most important person in the city because he handled all the sludge. So there must have been something I was bringing home to the family that had them, at least the kids, think that I was really excited about what I was doing. Now, if 2020 were a bad year for kids to start college, 1968 was probably a terrible year too. If you know anything about the history of race and anti-war protests, 68 was a pretty bad year. That was when I entered college, but it was also a year that allowed me to be part of the first Earth Day. And I was in a college of agriculture where the professors there paid no attention to any of the issues outside of agriculture. So it was both protected as well as, at the, spear point of issues in our culture, including environmental ones. I got out after a couple of years of master's and entered a world where environmental programs were huge. I worked in coastal zone, I worked in clean air, I worked in regional transportation, I worked in natural diversity protection, I worked in all sorts of areas, and including area-wide wastewater treatment planning. And I was recruited by the water department in Philadelphia as they brought on board 3 regional wastewater plants. If we are interested in engaging young professionals today, the entire program for expanded wastewater treatment was being designed and constructed and operated by young professionals. Virtually all the teams that I worked with were young people in their 30s who were working urgently to bring new treatment plant facilities under full operation. And biosolids was a whole new area for many people in our region. And we were starting things from scratch that nobody had ever tried before. And including in Philadelphia, one of the world's largest composting facilities. Now, if you're a young person who is empowered to spend tens of millions of dollars on some bright ideas like composting, you're just as likely to be making tens of millions of dollars worth of mistakes. And putting a compost plant alongside the principal gateway to downtown Philadelphia, that classifies as a pretty awful mistake. And we spent a good 20 years trying to figure out how to control odors. Just not possible. So odors became one of my special fortes, trying to figure out not only what to do about it, but what were the odors. So Janine, you're on mute. So if you're trying to send me a message.
Sorry, Bill. Thank you. Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you another question because, yeah, you have always been at the forefront and emphasizing the need for high quality management of biosolids. I know you were involved with developing some certification programs and testing for land appliers. What do you think's going on with these programs? Why do you think we're still having a lot of these issues with quality?
Well, the training issue came up early on because we saw there was a big disconnect between what had been the generational experience with supporting wastewater treatment operators in doing a good job in running their treatment plants, and the folks that we were actually employing to do land application of biosolids. That both the associations and the governmental structure that awarded training credits, who issued certifications for their operation, they did not apply to the biosolids land appliers. So we wanted to have a parallel system to offer that will have all those folks that are actually out in the field, working with the customers, working with the public, available to do the same thing for those a training program that would serve them and certify their capabilities, their knowledge. The sad thing is that there was never a sufficient driver, no regulatory requirement, that would allow us to take this program that we developed and actually get it to be used. And it's an area that I think is still a major gap that needs to be filled. You don't have that connection between the need to ensure a good quality program and the rewards that we can give to those who are committed to doing that.
Thank you for that little sidetrack there. But yeah, let's get back to your big compost operation there in Philadelphia. We're still not to MABA yet.
Yeah, well, so what we discovered, and one of the things that I think is one of the ironies, is that there was virtually no scientific study of what constituted the odorant compounds coming off of biosolids. It is the number one factor in disrupting our programs when it is a bad odor. But we had no idea what those odors were. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, how are you going to possibly find a mechanism to control it? So we spent about 10 years and a lot of worth money trying to identify what those odorants were, why they were coming off, and what could be done to control it. And the bottom line is that they're not easy to control. It's complicated, and we sort of ran out of energy and time to fix the problem. And so for the next 10 years, we have been sort of still in a space of pretty much ignoring the responsibility that we have as environmental stewards to ensure that odors are kept under control. My particular concern about that is that odors are a sense that people do not have in common. Some folks are very sensitive, some folks are not. I sort of suspect that those who work inside a sewage treatment plant are not sensitive. But if you have a neighbor who is, guess what? You have a challenge. And we cannot be, we have to recognize that there is a possibility that that odorant can create panic and fear. That panic and fear is a real health effect. It may not be toxic, but it's a health effect. And we are in the business of protecting public health. So we need to be in the business of solving our odor issues, whether it's at the plant or whether it's with a product that we are recycling.
Point taken. And I will say I've never met a politician who didn't mind spending money on odor control stuff, but we want to be smart when we do that. We'll get back to odors in a minute, but can you tell us how you get to MABA? How did that journey occur?
Well, I would say that we have to give thanks to the Northwest. Northwest Biosolids was the father of most other regional programs. And Northwest Biosolids got a grant from the EPA to help train individuals interested in setting up their own regional associations.
I did not know that.
And that grant happened about 1997, I think. And I think that's the same year that NEBRA and MABA both sort of took the first steps at organizing themselves. And so we convened our own group. I have to say that part of the inspiration for that was a sense that our state member associations, as well as WEF, did not have a strong commitment to public communication around biosolids and that, or public advocacy of biosolids, and that there was a gap that we could fill. And so we took that on as volunteers. And then some 13 years later, I was no longer in city government. So I could then step into a paid position with MABA as executive director rather than a volunteer inside of city government. So I've always been there for MABA, you might say. So not always as executive director, but it's been a privilege.
Absolutely, and you're right. We do have a gap that we fill. So, and you've talked to me about gaps before, gaps in biosolids quality processes, gaps in training, gaps in things. Let's is odor one of those gaps that you refer to, or?
Well, you know, my problem with odors is that our industry has never taken it upon itself to set standards or measures of odorants in our biosolids that would allow us ourselves to communicate a comparison of one biosolids product to another, or technology one to the other. What you don't have measurements for, you're not going to have management for. So we have a we have we borrow from our wastewater treatment side an ethic that we are compliance oriented. We're going to take our standards and meet those standards. Well, we don't have standards for odors in biosolids, and so therefore we don't have a real focus on the measurement of those odors. My complaint with that is that when we as public officials are looking for technologies to give us a good biosolids product, we can't offer to our technology providers standards for performance that we expect them to meet on odors. So it's going to be very hard for us to procure the kind of treatment technologies or services that we are sure are going to provide us the product or the program that avoids odor problems. And while we know this has been a problem for 30 or 40 years, there is no concerted effort to bring this forward. I was part of the WRF study, high quality biosolids study, high quality biosolids from wastewater study. And that study did look at odors very deliberately, looking for new measurements that would allow us to discriminate objectively products that were suited for consumer use, residential consumer use, versus those that were not, based on objective measurements, not on just somebody's sense of smell, or
Because it's different for everybody.
it's different for everybody. Well, you made some good starts, but nothing.
What happened to that?
It's available from WRF. You can buy a copy of that.
Okay.
It actually was a project that fell the gap between WRF and WRF, between the
When they were transitioning from, okay.
And so it was
Well,
kind of an awkward transition.
well, I'll have to dig that out now and make it available to folks.
Yeah.
Well,
One of my fun things with that project is we hired an entomologist.
an entomologist.
Yes, a fly expert.
Ah,
The only tribe of houseflies in a laboratory setting. And he exposed biosolids products to fertile female flies to see which ones would actually lay eggs in the different products. Class A, EQ products, by the way. And he found some that did. You don't want Class A EQ products that you are holding out as consumer products to be attractive to fertile female flies. No, they're not the products that you're going to sell very well.
you're right, right. So as far as other gaps that you see between the products and the market for the products, what else do you think we need to do in that area to better market our products or to make them more appealing and acceptable to the market?
There's a couple things that have been pet peeves of mine. For those of us who are as old as me, we probably remember when biosolids was a brand new name. We may even know Pete Mockno, the biosolids manager from Seattle, who was the inspiration for an industry effort to come up with a new term of art for sewage sludge. And that was adopted in 1991, just ahead of the regulations, 1991. So it's a brand new word, but it was only meant to distinguish product that met Part 503 versus product that did not meet 503. It was not intended to be anything more elaborate than if it doesn't go through a Class B or Class A process, doesn't have metals or vector attraction reduction, then you can call it sludge.
Okay.
If it does, then you have biosolids. But it doesn't go far enough. It's not intended to be a term that allows us to automatically go to the marketplace and say, we can distribute and market this biosolids. Class A EQ is as close a term as we have to something that is intended to be a consumer product. But it's not good enough. We do not have words to describe the distinction between a Class A EQ biosolids that can be provided to farmers that are professional and can apply it correctly versus a Class A EQ that we put in a bag, delivered to Lowe's and have them sell it. We do not have the measures. We do not have the words. We do not have the name of what that is that we have created with our hundreds of dollars per ton of operational expense and capital expense. We don't have the way of discussing ourselves, among ourselves, what it takes to create that product. So we don't have yet our own structure for deciding how we move forward on making great products for consumer use. And that, I think, is a big gap. We say we are committed to resource recovery. We say we are committed to capturing the value of the product for homeowners and landowners and farmers. But what other economic enterprise is out there that doesn't first describe specifically what its customers are looking for, and then design everything that is in the manufacturing side to create that product? That's not what we're doing.
No, we're coming at it a different way, but can we do it? Do you think we can get there?
After working at trying to do this for 35 years, I wonder. I think the evidence of where it has worked best, actually, maybe I hope not to step on anybody's toes here, but we have in our region examples of public-private partnerships of both pellets and compost that have been long-standing, they have been successful, they've been reliable, they've met the customer's requirements, and but they've been patient investments, you might say, by public agencies and a long-standing commitment with the private sector. They're not quick, let's get the bid out, get it done now kind of projects. They required, a willingness to pay more than maybe the low bid for a long-term contract. And
it
so
probably requires a champion there as well at the local level.
And some of these were created under crises, created when there was a disaster that had just been avoided or one that had to be fixed. And there was a political willingness to make an extraordinary step toward a long-term contract that may have been, on the face of it, expensive.
It's interesting. That's a little what I'm afraid of will have to happen here before we do get serious about recycling biosolids. Do you have any suggested names that you're thinking of? I know you love words and stuff. What do you?
I should have tried to remind myself what some of those were. Oh man, I'm sorry I did not. But I wanted to have a name that sort of indicated that the product was could be held. It could be
Okay.
embraced
Okay.
somehow, and that it would be pleasant to the smell. I mean, earthy and rich and evocative of growing things.
I get it. A healthy soil smell
Yes.
word.
Yeah. Healthy soil
Huh.
smell word. I don't. Uh,
Again, back
and
to
that it would
odors,
look
but
good. It
good
would look good.
odors. And it
I want to
smells
roll
good
in
to
it.
you. So let's just talk a minute about a little bit towards the future, because I noticed back in April you had written some spotlight pieces about some young professionals from MABA. And I'm just curious what you had talked initially about the younger generation coming together back in the late 60s and 70s to build this infrastructure. Just curious what you see ahead, how they can take us forward and move ahead in this biosolids management field.
What I am hoping are the instincts of the new generation coming forward that would help us a lot, is that of networking across disciplines, across environmental organizations and technologies,
Mm-hmm.
in order to create a larger texture of engagement of wastewater professionals and biosolids managers with other fields of environment, whether it's, healthy soils or regenerative agriculture or restored landscapes, or whether it's in the area of biofuels and
Mm-hmm.
distributed energy, somehow allow us to tap into the creative energies in these other fields of environmental stewardship and bring that talent and that resourcefulness to us, so we have new ideas and new approaches, and perhaps new leadership in government to move past the reliance on old ways of treatment and management. And it may take a lot of us at our age getting kicked in the pants by some people with great ideas to have us realize that stepping aside and letting them take charge may be what gets the job done. Sort of like what happened in 1980 when we had to build these wastewater treatment plants and start up new programs. It's worth making a few mistakes to get a creative job done.
Yeah, very good. I'm hopeful too, from what I've seen. You have a YP committee at MABA?
We now have a YP committee.
Congratulations.
It's a beautiful
Just
thing.
good. Tap into that energy, Bill. Good job. Let me ask you to think back a little bit. Maybe to identify one or two of the most impactful things, or the things that we've achieved in biosolids management that have really moved us forward. What do you think some of the biggest impacts have been?
Well, I mentioned composting before. I guess what I personally, because of my own predilection on soil and growing things, back when I first started, there was 5 or 6 major different approaches to composting. And there was a lot of focus on the mechanics. But what we actually were able to demonstrate was that the flexible, resilient approaches involved fairly simple technologies. And some of these have proved useful at all sorts of scale. And I think the big message from my standpoint was that a good biosolids compost has an audience and it has a market, no matter where you go. And it's been a pleasant surprise to me to see some of the facilities that were there when I was a young biosolids manager still doing the job and still finding lots of customers and still becoming an important part of a green infrastructure, which is a new term of art, in metropolitan areas. And I think it's a good role model for almost anywhere in the world for how human residuals can be recycled. And so while it was not a hugely romantic technology, it does the job. The other thing that I sort of take some sort of solace in is that I've been through dioxin, radioactivity, PCBs, DDT, PBDEs. So when I hear PFAS, even though it's different, to some extent for me, it feels a little bit the same. And I think we're going to get through it because some of the same things are at play. There is an initial need to jump on the issue, and then there will be sort of a resolution to allow us to keep moving forward. So
I thought we might get through the conversation without mentioning the P word, but that is very good perspective, though, Bill. You're right. And I think things seems to be shaking out a little bit more now in that way.
Yeah, in my background, I had both a PCB spill and a pesticide spill to deal with, and it had major impacts, but take a deep breath.
Got through it. Right. Any advice you would give your younger self as you would looking back now, how you dealt with situations, difficulties, how again, it's not an instant gratification profession. You had to stick to it.
It's very easy sitting in a city office just to hold yourself up and not get out. If I were to do it
as
again,
a regulator, right?
I would have joined the Sierra Club locally and tried to change the local Sierra Club. I would have
bet on you.
I would have joined the Rodale Institute, become a part of their board, try to influence their policies. I remember going to a Delaware Basin session on watershed management. Not a single wastewater person there. Everything they were talking about was pollution and how to fix it. The wastewater people were not there. Our profession has almost zero engagement in other environmental spheres that we ought to be centrally involved with. It's a shame on us. Just like with PFAS, why are we not on the spearhead to end the use of those compounds in society? It's the use of those things is upsetting our programs. Why are we not at the forefront advocating?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Maybe the YPs can provide us more answers and cross-cutting. Maybe they can get on in these the Sierra Club. But that's interesting advice. You're right. I think we probably need to know each other. We all have the same goals, Sierra Club and wastewater operators. So what are you going to do in the future, Bill? What do you got? What plans do you have? What kind of research you do? What's going to be your...
If I were to go out with the city of Philadelphia mapped out the zones of the city where climate change may result in heat centers that will kill people because of lack of vegetation. We have vast areas of pavement that are unused. Why are we not restoring those lands using biosolids, using sediments, using paper residuals,
Other residuals, sure.
other residuals, food waste residuals? Why are we not deploying all these organic products to restore soils and habitats in the city and protect the future residents from the heat island effects of growing climate change and increasing temperatures? Those trees are going to take 20, 30 years to grow. You have to start now. So while I may not have 30 years ahead of me, I can take action today that would be measurable in its effects on people in the future. And I think even the young professionals can get involved in that because they will be around. But I
Sure.
think it's a common issue in almost every city that there are vast opportunities to reshape the ecosystems in the cities to help make them resilient against the inevitably increasing temperatures in our urban centers. So
Again, biosolids as a solution. Yes. So at this point, Bill, I think I've asked all the burning questions that I had, and I'd like to open it up to you in case you have any burning topics that you want to address. And I'm also going to see if we have any questions, because I can open up the floor for questions as well. But is there anything big that we didn't cover?
Well, one of the things that I'm curious about, are there major changes in wastewater treatment that will significantly alter the nature of biosolids, like anaerobic membrane treatment, or
what about phosphorus removal technologies as concerns with phosphorus? We didn't talk about phosphorus. That's the other big P word.
Yeah, the other big P word.
Yeah.
Okay, so my despair over phosphorus is that, as far as I can tell, there's no driver to remove phosphorus for the sake of improving biosolids quality. There's neither the regulations out there nor the technologies available that wastewater agencies would find affordable in order to deploy them, unless and until there were to be a major initiative to call for the extraction of phosphorus and an economic system to value that extraction. I don't see it happening. There was the paper I did a couple of weeks ago that showed that it would cost about $40 to remove a pound of phosphorus, but it's only worth about 10 cents in the marketplace. So,
right now.
So you're right. That is a topic I could go on and on about.
And the drivers, or the lack of drivers for that.
Certainly struvite maintenance and equipment protection is at the forefront of what's driving the current technologies, and they're getting some great results, but it only removes 15 to 40% of the phosphorus in the biosolids, not nearly enough to bring our biosolids into a quality that is an agronomic balance.
Let's see. What else? What other things did we not cover that you're very passionate about? I can see in the background what you must use some biosolids there in your.
Yes.
Because we didn't talk about that. You have a degree in agriculture, is that right?
Studied soils. In
Ah,
fact, the research lab I was involved in had a collaboration with the USDA down in Beltsville, and I had a conversation with Rufus Cheney when he was still a grad student or a post-grad student. So we went way, way back. And he was sort of the big man, so to speak, in metals behavior in soils. So I have a long-standing interest in the fate of heavy metals added to soils.
I do have a question here for you, Bill, from the crowd. Oh, any global stories? Have you done some world traveling? Countries you visited? What are they doing? I'm sure if you're like me, when you visit someplace, you go check out the local biosolids management operation, right?
No, yeah, I don't have too much.
No, too.
And I haven't visited any wastewater facilities across the world. Vince Appa is sort of a person I go to when I want good stories from of global biosolids. But I believe that I also have a favorite concern, a pet peeve that that we in the United States were at one time leaders in biosolids technologies, but our complacency with 503 regulations being sort of the standard for all time has sort of allowed us to rest on old technologies, and that the new stuff coming out there, we're finding coming from Asia or Europe.
Hmm.
And not that that's anything terribly wrong with that, except it'd be sort of nice to, encourage local entrepreneurs to come up with some of the new innovations, I should say.
I wonder what, and you just think it's our complacency here now where we got the 503 regs and we're good. We don't need to have any innovations. What about around odors?
Yeah, we don't have standards for odors, so we don't really have technology for odors.
Yeah, no, good point about the standards. Let me see if there's other questions here. Thanks for that question, Jen. So what's next for you now, Bill? What's going on? We have a symposium coming up. I just want to put a plug out for that. I know you're busy.
I mean, there's two things that folks might want to help with here. One is that there is a job opening at Mid-Atlantic Biosolids Association, for those who hadn't heard. And there is an opportunity for anybody at any age who would like to have a great gig to become the executive director for MABA. And if you step up now, I'll even give you some personal training.
All right, a transition.
A transition time.
Excellent.
We also are, this will probably be our last virtual summer technical symposium. We are having this in July, and we have 6 sessions, and they're starting July 13th. Registration is open, so you go to our website.
What's the theme? What, you usually have a theme every year.
Well, we're starting with the end product in mind. So the idea is all around how can we make good choices in our technologies, in our programs, in our management, by knowing what how our end product is meeting customer needs. So that's a general theme, but we have a wide variety of people discussing on topics there. So check it out.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there. But yeah, it would be nice to meet in person again next time. All right. Anything else to add? I don't know if any other folks have questions here, I think I can let people talk, but
So I was talking about how you can empower young people to make big mistakes. Let me just tell you about one of my really, really big mistakes.
okay.
One of the things that I inherited when I came to the department was 200,000 tons of biosolids in a big pile underneath the runway of the international airport. And that pile had to be moved out. And one of our projects was to use an old rail line right alongside of it. And so I organized a project to rail haul a lot of this biosolids product out to some mines in southwestern Virginia. It was a fabulous success, except that I overspent the purchase order by $2.5 million.
What is that, transportation costs? Is that what that was?
They just moved out so much material. I had lost track of everything they were moving.
You didn't
out.
lose your job after that?
No.
No, good. That was a young professional mistake.
That was a young professional mistake.
So we have to just accept it. Forgive.
Yeah, well, find the money someplace.
Yep.
So there's other stories like that, but I don't want to go into them.
All right, Bill. Well, I know this has been a pleasure for me. I've really enjoyed getting to know you the couple of years that I've been here with NEBRA. I agree, MABA, NEBRA, we have a very important role to play, fill in the gap, and lots of things to advocate for our members. But I really want to thank you. I mean, we all really appreciate your perspectives, your encouragement, your thoughtfulness, you know, your big picture thinking. And yeah, we need to make a better product, Bill. I agree. And keep recycling biosolids. So you got the plug for the MABA Summer Symposium. That is starting on June 13th. I'll be there.
And all, for that matter, anybody wants to join MABA or that have their companies join who are not members, just give me a call.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, thanks, Bill. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. We have these sessions lined up through October right now, and check our events page for more information. And I'm always looking for suggestions, for ideas, for a quick lunch and learn session like this. So email me if there's something specific you want to lunch and learn about. Thanks again, Bill. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of NEBRA's Lunch and Learn sessions. See you next month.